Okay, what we're going to look at today is we're going to look at order of operations and do a review of order of operations. If you don't have notes in front of you, you may want to print those off so you can follow along with this review. It's going to be a quick review, a refresher of all the stuff you've learned up until grade 10. So first of all, what is an operation? Well, if something is an operation, it has nothing to do with medicine. An operation in math is anything like adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing, squaring, etc., where you're adding things together or subtracting two values. Now the problem is, what happens when we see something that looks like this, where we have a lot of operations together? Well, if that occurs, then what we have to do is we need to figure out an order. Because the question is, what part do you calculate first? Now, here is the key. If we don't do them in the wrong order, we're going to get the wrong answer. So order of operations are very important when we have a number of operations together, like we have in that question right there. So let's go through and review the order of operations. First thing we do when we're doing order of operations is we deal with the brackets first. So anytime we have brackets, we deal with that first and everything else second. So in this question, if we have 3 times bracket 5 plus 3, well, the first thing we need to do is we need to deal with the bracket. So we're just going to leave the 3 times the same, and in the bracket, we're going to have 3 and 5 added together, which is 8. So now we have 3 times 8, which is 24. And that's the order of operations. Now, let's just look here. If I had done this without order of operations, if I had done 3 times 5 first, and then added 3, what I'm going to get is 15 plus 3, which is 18, which is the wrong answer. That's why it's very important to do proper order when you're dealing with order of operations. Well, what about exponents and roots? Well, they come second. So exponents and square roots before you multiply and divide. So in the next example, we have 5 times 3 to the power of 2, or 3 squared, which means we do the exponents first. The 5 times we don't deal with yet. 3 squared is the same as 3 times 3, which is 9. And we have 5 times 9, which is 45. That's the order we do. First the brackets, then the exponents. Well, next, if we have multiplying or dividing, we do that before adding and subtracting. So here's the question where we have 2 plus 5 times 3. The first thing we're going to deal with is the multiplying. So we're going to have 2 plus 5 times 3 is 15. And now we can add them together. 2 plus 15 is 17. So we just have to remember to multiply and divide before we add and subtract. Well, what if there's just all multiplying and dividing, like in this next example? Well, in that case, we just work left to right. So we'll just do the first operation we get, which is 30 divided by 5. And 30 divided by 5 becomes 6. So we get 6 times 3, and 6 times 3 is 18. Now what about adding and subtracting? Well, if we have nothing but adding and subtracting, we just work left to right. Adding and subtracting is always less. So if we're working left to right, first thing we do is add the first 2 numbers together. 2 plus 7 is 9 minus 6, and 9 minus 6 is 3. Now, how do we put this all together? We got to remember this order. First thing we do is we do brackets, then exponents, then division and multiplication, then addition and subtraction. And remember, if you're doing multiplication and division and adding and subtracting, they're the same. considering the same order. And we would do them left to right if it's just division and multiplication. Well, how do we remember this? And hopefully you remember all this. It's our order of operations. BEDMAS. Brackets, exponents, division, multiplication, subtraction. BEDMAS. BEDMAS applies to every single operation you ever will do. We always need to do order of operations. So let's go back to the original example. How do we do this operation? Well, we need to do BEDMAS. And we're just going to work our way through and doing all the order of operations if they exist. So, brackets. First thing we have to do is do inside the brackets. Well, inside the brackets is this right here. Now, once we get inside the brackets, we have more operations. Now we have to do BEDMAS inside the brackets. So, we first have to figure out the answer inside the brackets using BEDMAS. So the first thing would be exponents. So at 7 on the outside, because it's not inside the brackets, I'm dragging it along for the entire ride. 6 times, if we're doing exponents first, 5 squared is 5 times 5, which is 25, plus 3. Okay, so I've done the exponents inside the brackets. There's no division. The next would be multiplication. So 7 plus 6 times 25 is 150. Plus 3. All right, I've done the multiplication. Next is adding. Again, all inside the brackets. Add them all up. 150. 3. And no subtraction. And now when I get down to this question, the brackets aren't doing anything to that number anymore. So it just becomes 1 plus 153. And if I do order of operations on this now, the only thing I have left here is addition. So we just go 153 plus 7, which is 160. That's it. That's how we do order of operations. Now you can go ahead and you can go to the review questions. There's a number of review questions on order of operations.